current landscape of immigration, I would imagine most of you would be aware of, is an extremely hostile one. I mean, you know, everybody would be familiar with the Windrush scandal that saw people who were either settled in the UK or British citizens being denied services, detained, removed, deported, and in some cases, some people have died. We also see the really dreadful situation of people who have lived in the UK most of their lives, some of them arriving here from the age of 1 and 2, being deported to countries they don't know. We see and it became very prominent as a result of COVID-19, or came to our attention, the dreadful situation regarding detention centres and the sorts of people who are in them. People who are deemed low risk, people who there's no chance of removing them, and it became a major discussion as a result of their safety and their ability to physically distance during the lockdown period. And as a result, organisations went to court in order to get people out. It wasn't even the government that thought it was the right thing to do. It had to be ordered, in part, by the court, because they didn't win the complete case, but certainly their legal action enabled those releases. And we saw, in the context of COVID-19, the dreadful situation of immigration fees arising, particularly the immigration health surcharge that people working in the NHS and in independent care are forced to pay at exorbitant amounts for them and their families, almost making the ability to come to the UK to work in those environments a class issue, because who can afford those fees? I mean, in the context of internationalism, I think it's really the question of refugee status and people seeking asylum that's relevant. Without a doubt, the current hostile environment is ideologically driven, more so by conservative government and conservative type politics or centre-right politics. But we also know that there are serious problems with the question of immigration on the left. So whereas it's fairly certain that people on the left reach out to migrants and welcome them and treat them fairly, and even make the class perspective in terms of, you know, being one class, being part of the working class, I think it doesn't go far enough in terms of when there are opportunities to actually make legislation or to make policy or to be more vocal about it. We are not seeing it enough. We know that it was a Labour government that was responsible for the 2007 Borders Act, which enables the deportation of people who arrived in the UK as children. Labour was behind the drafting of the Immigration Act, although the government changed before it came in. And we know the 2014 Act, which really saw the problems that the Windrush generation experienced. Only 6 Labour MPs actually voted against that act, and I'm delighted to be in the company of one of them, Jeremy Corbyn. But there is this ideological position, and it makes it very, very difficult, because if we, and the doctor before me spoke about how badly the COVID-19 situation has been managed. And so, you know, England is going to have, or the UK rather, is actually going to have a crisis. The world is going to have a crisis. But some countries have managed COVID-19 quite well. And so their crisis isn't going to be as a result of that, but we are going to be thrown into a serious recession, it looks like, from the experts. And as a result, you know, people aren't just seeking refuge because there is this pandemic or because there are issues in their country around disease, but people are seeking refuge all the time because we live in this awful world where we have leaders like Trump and Boris Johnson and Bolsonaro, and we have this great inequality in the world. We have terrible neoliberalism, geopolitics, the balance of trade. There is war, we've got despotic leaders who breach human rights, and so we will have people needing to seek refuge, and a lot of them will end up in the UK. And the UK only accounts for about 1 or less than 1% of refugees at any one time. But there is this myth and this notion that, you know, we're a light touch, that it's very easy to get into the UK if you are a refugee. And the attitudes that we have, and I think it's the attitude from the surveys which show or which enable or frighten bits of the left not to be more, I think, more articulate and more vocal about immigration policy. So for instance, in 2018, Oxford University's Migration Observatory found 58% of people wanted to see less migrants coming to the UK. Now, if you've got an election to fight, you're bearing that in mind. You're not going out to educate people about the benefits of migration to the country. You're holding that data in your head. There was that awful survey, I can't remember, I think it was 2017, where 10% of people said they'd like to see less Australians, but in the surveys, same survey, 37% said they'd like to see less Nigerians. So the whole debate, we saw it in Brexit, is posited along race politics. And I think as liberation and organizations allied to the thinking of liberation, we have a duty and a responsibility to be able to stand up and help cause legislation that's going to make a difference, because the world is going to be a very, very difficult place, and people are going to be seeking refuge here. It's difficult enough because the processes, we haven't got time to go into the processes, but the process of seeking asylum, the doubts, the fact that they're criminalized, the fact that we saw the Home Secretary during the COVID-19 lockdown negotiating with her counterpart in France, wanting to increase budgets to stop those boats from coming in. We saw the antics of Farage, and it is a legal right to come here and seek refugee seekers status. It is a legal right to claim asylum, and we see policy that's counter to that. So we're in a very, very difficult place. I really wish I had more time to go into more details, particularly the data, because I think those of us on the left need to study the data of it, because I think we are not brave enough on the question of migration. I think there are a multitude of reasons why that's the case. But as a result of it, we're letting the right-wing ideology win the debate.